Okay, I think this is the last area to go over. And, you know, I'll reiterate, one of the lessons of this whole experiment was, even though I got the engine and rear wheel for $60, dirt cheap, and I had a carburetor in the frame and the forks, buying this stuff piecemeal off eBay will just destroy you. And like I said, I probably got $1,000 into the whole thing, which is scary. So if you want to do this, get a complete express, and if you can find an Urban Express engine to begin with, because they're difficult to find, at least online. And so when I opted not to use the Urban Express headlight, which has not only room for wiring but a spot for an ignition cylinder, you know, I no longer had a spot for the ignition cylinder, and I don't even have, I do have an ignition cylinder without the keyed part. You know, someone had, I think I've got a couple as a matter of fact. But anyways, this is basically hot wired, which is real simple. And one of the problems with hot wiring it is it's always drawing power from the battery. So I added this switch, which is basically in line with the positive terminal of the battery. And so I can cut off power to the battery, or when I go to start it, I can turn it on. But actually when you start it, even if it's off, all the lights and other electricals work just fine. But you really should have that on, so number one, you can charge the battery. Number two, the battery acts as a regulator in the Express and Urban Express system. Although you can get an Urban Express with a regulator, but that's another story. And then my 6 volt to 12 volt conversion is not complete, as that's actually a 6 volt rectifier from a QT50. And I was kind of, you know, mulling this over in my head, and I came to the conclusion, you know, it shouldn't make any difference if the rectifier is running in a 6 volt or 12 volt system, and so far it hasn't. So that was one of the problems I had to ponder and overcome, and maybe I just got lucky. Now, I did get a CDI, Urban CDI with the engine, and I didn't realize that at first because I got a bunch of extra parts and I just didn't realize what I had. And before I realized it, I knew I had this blue quote-unquote racing CDI, and I just decided to use that. Now, a lot of people will tell you that the blue racing CDI does nothing and it's a waste of money. It's only $8 shipped, number one. So how can you really go wrong, right? And number two, I believe it actually does do something. I believe it retards the timing ever so slightly, which is one of the reasons I'm running such a small jet in this setup. On a regular Urban, this setup should probably be doing like a low 80s jet, and I'm doing a 75. But if you retard the timing, things are going to run a little bit richer. And if you retard the timing, you're basically adding to the top end. So for now, I'm going to stick with this Blue Racing CDI. I might try the regular CDI later and see how that goes. And then this is just the tiniest 12 volt battery I could find. I had to take out some of the foam that's already in the seat pan, or whatever you want to call it, to make it fit. But I got lucky there. It's a little tall, but the seat fits over it fine. And this was a soldering bonanza. If you like to solder wires, This was a soldering bonanza, not only here, but up front at the headlight and down below where the wires hook up. A soldering bonanza. And yeah, that was anything else. And another thing, this came wired for turn signals, and there's actually a spot for a turn signal relay. It either fits here or there, I forget which. But of course, I got these handlebars from an older Express that didn't have turn signals. And frankly, one of the things I hate about the Express and the Urban Express are those stupid looking turn signals that always manage to catch something in your garage or elsewhere because they stick out so far. Now, on the other hand, you know, the Honda turn signals work better than any turn signals I've ever used. They seem to be almost bulletproof, but they are the ugliest, most obtrusive things that you could put on a bike. And if I were to put turn signals on this, they would be the low profile, close to the tail light, headlight sort of things. You know, on one hand, you kind of want them to stick out further so they're more visible to other people. But I think you get a lot sleeker look without the turn signals. And I guess you can always use hand signals if you really want. Let's pop over to the other side for one last thing about the wiring, if I can get to it here, because I'm kind of against the wall. So as you can see there, that is a regulator that I added to the system. And I decided to wire it off of the yellow lighting wire instead of the, let's see here. Ow, 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 ow. I could have regulated, I think there's another power wire coming out of the stator. And I may change that, but basically when you rev the throttle, you know, I don't get any difference in lighting. You know, the bulb, the headlight stays the same, which is good if you don't want to blow a bulb. It's bad if you're looking for brighter headlights. So right now the headlight is not as bright as it could be, but the system is well regulated and very well grounded. I think I've got at least a couple grounds going on here. So that's some of the electricals going on. And, you know, without the turn signals, I simplified things a bit, although, you know, wiring has always been intimidating to me. But actually, once you break it down to this point where you've got to go through all the wiring, it's a lot less intimidating once you've done it. And obviously, I need to clean up the wiring down below and at the headlight. But this is not finished. You know, this is just, you know, one of several stages to go. And, you know, the temptation, which I fell victim to, is to get this thing running so you can ride it and worry about the details later. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I am worrying about the details later. Now, while the headlight is dim, this rear tail light, right next to the red grapefruit box, is very bright, especially when running. But the brake lights, I mean, damn, that is the brightest rear tail light that I've come across. Maybe because it's all new, I don't know. But the tail light is definitely going to be spotted, that's for sure, or at least very difficult to ignore. So there's your Honda NCU50 overview. I guess I'll say one other thing that I forgot. So one of my favorite upgrades to any old Noped is to put new tires on. And the beauty of the Express front fender is the fender stays run outside of the fender instead of inside of it. As well, I guess, as the rear fender on the Urban Express. So that makes it very easy to put on the biggest tire you can possibly put on. And that is a 14-inch IRC NR 7090 tire. And as you can probably tell, it protrudes beyond what the front fender can cover. And I just think that a bigger, wider, taller tire has many advantages in terms of braking, shock absorption, traction, ride quality, and generally, of course, the tire that was on it was just dry rotted and cracked to no end. Not safe to ride on, especially if you're going to try to go at speeds well beyond what this bike was intended for. And in the back tire is the IRC 8090 14-inch tire. I forget what the stock Urban rear tire is. Probably a similar width, but again, that tire was dry rotted, cracked, and really beyond any useful life and not safe for riding at all. So there you go. There's probably some things that I've forgotten, but that's kind of an overview of the NCU50 Hybrid Express, which, even though it's cost me a bundle, it's been, I guess, number one, that's the price of tuition, because I have learned a heck of a lot in doing this. You'll learn more building something up from the ground, especially if it's a hybrid Frankenstein bike, than you will, building a stock bike, from the ground up. And then, so yeah, I got the value of learning quite a bit about these things, more than I'd ever learned before. And then, of course, I'm going to probably learn a lot working out that CVT system with the stock engine as well. And then it's just been a real joy and a lot of fun to do something like this. And it really takes the regular Express to another level in terms of speed and rideability and acceleration, and probably even longevity, because that CVT engine drive system the engine runs a lot cooler. Now, you add a top into it that it's a higher rever, that's a different story, but not on the stock engine. So I'll continue to update you with the changes and progress, because it is definitely a work in progress. And hey, thanks for watching.